tutorial explains first operations in GC postrun window. First of all, I would like to explain the toolbar. It starts with qualitative analysis. Qualitative analysis in GCMS solution means the identification of the peaks. Identification is based on full spectra. So qualitative analysis is mainly TIC integration and identification based work on that. Second icon is create a compound table based on the identification in qualitative. We can produce a compound table. A qualitative table is a table where we have peaks and identification with names based on spectra and integration on TIC. A compound table is a table where we do calibration on, and this table has a compound name and maybe selected masses we want to quantify with qualifier ein and quantifier ein. So therefore the next step after identification is to create a compound table, and the next two other steps is producing calibration curves and doing quantitative analysis. This usually is based on selected masses, either in full scan or in SIM mode. This can be done all on single files in these items, but also using batch processing. Data comparison, that's an easy tool to compare chromatograms. For example, these two files here. So I loaded two chromatograms in here, and if we click this and zoom in any of the peaks, we got a spectrum, and we got a spectrum for both chromatographs at this position. The chromatogram A, which is alkane of 30 meters, shows the spectrum, while this is baseline in the purple chromatogram. This can be compensated for comparison by shifting chromatogram B, so we can select the corresponding chromatogram we want to shift. We click left and right shift bottom, which is this one, and then we select the peak of the chromatogram we want to shift. We click the left mouse and we drag it to the left side, and then the whole chromatogram based on that peak is shifted, which directly shows me now the spectra of both peaks in that comparison window. This is helpful when trying to understand whether the peak under study is the same in both chromatograms. Of course, we can do averaging of spectra here the same way like in the data analysis window, and we can individually search each spectrum by clicking right mouse button when we are inside the spectrum. This is the spectrum of the top chromatogram. So this is the data comparison window. There is others, report format and the library editor, which will be explained in a later tutorial. If we activate this button here, all open windows can also be switched here at the bottom, like this one, between data analysis and data comparison. In data analysis, it's very often useful to define a mass to find a peak. So, for example, we want to find a peak with a mass 1 to 1 in that chromatogram. For that, we activate fragment table. In the fragment table, we can define the mass we want to see. And the factor is a graphical factor. So if we change that, it just changes the graphical display of the chromatogram, or the mass chromatogram in this case. If I activate base shift, the TIC and the trace for 1 to 1 is displayed, and it's base shifted. So this is very helpful because we can see all peaks having a dominant 1 to 1 fragment, is just this peak, and then I can click and see it. There is also a way to activate this mask trace directly by the mass spectrum. Say for example, this is a peak which has obviously a 201 fragment. If I want to see other peaks which having that fragment, there are two ways to display that. One way is using the fragment table. The second way is going with the cursor in front of this mask, double clicking, and the software automatically adds this mask trace, and it automatically gives a graphical amplification factor in order to display the mask chromatogram.